Look, I was tired all the time. I nap about 2 hours a day and now I don't nap at all. I can't believe I can wake up in the morning. That's never happened to me in my whole life. What is fatigue? It's the lingering tiredness that's constant. It's an unexplained exhaustion because it happens, even when you spent the day doing nothing. Sometimes you wake up from an 8-hour sleep, still feeling tired, or you may notice you're not productive at work or at home. Things might feel overwhelming for you on a day-to-day basis. There are many reasons this might happen. An almost 2-year pandemic could be one cause. Social unrest, the climate crisis and political turmoil don't help the situation. But beyond that, beyond the bigger picture of world affairs, something is going on a personal level. We are creating exhaustion for ourselves. What do I mean by that? Well, first, let's look at where we come from. Humans have not evolved much from our hunter-gatherer days. We used to be people who traveled in small groups, always on the go, eating and surviving from one day to the next like any other animal. Nobody stayed in one place for too long, and they rarely indulged in feasts. If they were lucky enough to have a feast, humans would eat everything they could and keep moving because they didn't know when they would get to eat next. Fast forward to today. Our DNA still believes we're in the savannas, having to eat whatever we can to survive. It's why you clean out a tub of ice cream in one go, even when you know it's not good for you. Your body wants to stock up on food. When the agricultural revolution came about and humans started to settle down, we started eating more than we needed. Therein lies the problem. We've gone from eating perhaps once a day when we could find food, to eating 3 meals a day, and some days it's 3 meals with evening and midnight snacks peppered in. The average American's eating cycle lasts 15 hours, which means they start eating the moment they wake up, and their last meal is just before bed. And it wouldn't be so bad if we were burning this food regularly, or even eating the right kind of food. Like our ancestors, our bodies find our food hard to digest, and its delay in digesting prevents our bodies from deriving the energy from the food. Overeating, the kinds of foods we do, fills up the tank but provides nothing in return. The subsequent weight gain has an adverse effect on your quality of life. Being overweight has been linked to sleep disorders like narcolepsy. Other than that, increased inflammation leads to high blood pressure, diabetes, issues with regulatory functions of the body, and of course fatigue because inflammation damages organs and tissues throughout the body. It requires energy to repair energy that it's not getting. The vicious cycle continues, but shouldn't food in general give us the energy to work well? Eating lowers something called RAIN, which is a neuropeptide that regulates wakefulness and appetite. The more you eat, the lower your erection goes, the more exhausted and unmotivated you feel. And there are only about 10 to 20,000 neurons that produce RAIN in our brains. Orexin is released throughout the brain to affect certain behaviors. Primarily, this means regulating behavior needed for survival, sleep, wake regulation, mating, and yes, also food intake. But in certain regions of your brain, orexin promotes seeking and taking rewards. Rewards can include alcohol, food, sugar, and nicotine. The neuropeptide in turn is stimulated by exposure to these substances and creates a positive feedback loop. Basically, the RAIN receptor involved in your thrill-seeking behavior is dependent on the part of your brain that is encouraging it. It's like parents encouraging a particular type of behavior. If you get negative feedback after breaking a window, you're unlikely to do it again. But if you get positive feedback for getting good grades, you want to keep doing the thing that made them. And ultimately, you happy. This action promotes the abuse of the neuropeptide. So you continue seeking food that will activate that positive feedback loop. And as you can assume more food than your body needs, you feel tired. A study published in the International Review of Neurobiology proves that orexin neurons promote food-seeking behavior for that positive feedback. But in the time before the neurons are activated to seek food, you see productivity. Your orexin levels are elevated after a 42 to 72-hour fast. If you have a set schedule for eating, Your R and neurons are more active immediately before it's time to eat, meaning you are your most focused and alert. This changes when there is a production of glucose in your body that happens due to food intake. Glucose at physiological levels reduces the firing of erect and neurons in a concentration-dependent manner. This means that under physiological conditions, RAIN is activated and transcribes the neuropeptide when glucose levels are low, like when you fast or restrict eating, and is inhibited when glucose levels are high. Now, this doesn't mean you have to stop eating or drastically reduce your portions, because that can cause your body to crash. What you need to do is eat the right foods, so your RAIN levels remain relatively high, keeping you alert and fresh instead of tired and groggy. For that, you need to cut out or at least reduce foods that convert into glucose in your body. The biggest culprit here: carbs. There's something wrong with the way we're eating. And what's wrong is that we're eating way too many carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are basically poisonous. When carbs are digested, they turn into sugar, which fuels your body. After eating carbs, your blood sugar goes up, and the body releases insulin, which moves the sugar into your cells to be stored and used as energy. And after some time, your blood sugar goes back down. If you eat a carb, your body can't handle your insulin production will increase, causing more hunger, anxiety, and yes, fatigue. This also causes stress to the body. And in response to that stress, your body releases cortisol. Cortisol removes the sugar from your cells and puts it back into your blood, which raises your blood sugar. If this happens maybe once in a while, it's no problem. But when it becomes a regular occurrence, 2 to 3 times a day, your body releases cortisol many times a day. And this chronic release of a stress hormone causes fatigue. Nearly half the foods we eat come from carbs. This includes both refined and unrefined. Carbohydrates, unrefined, are in their natural form and include fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. But refined carbs include white sugar, fruit juices, and flour. Most of the carbs we eat today, of course, are refined cakes, brioche bread, loaves. A majority of what we eat come in packets. Our ancestors certainly didn't eat food like this. They got only 30% of their calories from unrefined carbs, while the average American gets 50% of their calories from any carbohydrates. That's 20% more than our genetic ancestors, and from sources that are not nearly as clean or healthy as theirs. Now, it doesn't imply that if you eat carbs you'll be sleepy all the time. Bodybuilders, for example, load up on carbs, but you wouldn't peg them as sluggish or tired. That's primarily because they eat a lot of protein. It turns out has the opposite effect of carbs, and that it increases the RAIN levels in your brain. What's more, scientists at the University of Cambridge have found that amino acids, which are common in proteins like egg whites, actually subdue the damaging effect of glucose on your orexin receptors. So, if you can include protein with your carbs, you shouldn't feel as exhausted anymore. Along with portion control and eating the right food, timing also plays a vital role. Eating within 60 minutes of going to sleep has a detrimental effect on your sleep, because your body is still working on digesting your food and converting it to energy. Get an appropriate amount of physical activity in too. It can be low impact, like walking for 30 minutes a day or going for a swim. You don't necessarily need to lift weights or run if you don't want to. It might be challenging, especially if you struggle with fatigue and body weight. Even a moderate amount of walking will work wonders, and you will see a difference in your overall mental health and energy levels. Just be sure you take medical advice before starting any diets or exercise routines. Given your usual physical activity, energy levels, weight, and fatigue, you may need to start slow and take the help of a trainer before you can go it alone. But as you keep going, you will find that it gets easier. The results will be small at first, but they will compound over time if you remain consistent. If you found this video helpful, you can stay motivated with our content. Subscribe to the channel for more and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we upload a video. Thanks for watching.